should be coming. Fact is saying live on Facebook. I was gonna check my phone. Let's get this started. Okay, if everybody has their phones, if they can't see it, let me know if you see us. I think we just popped up. I see my face, but I don't see us. Okay, we're here. Hello, everybody. I see that we are on live. So the first thing I want to do is ask everybody, share, because this conversation is about to go down. I'm just letting everybody know that this is about to go down today. This is going to be epic. So with that said, I want to start off first because I don't want to take the time up for talking because we got too many awesome men on this panel to do that. So first I want to say my name is Barbara Beckley. I am the CEO and founder of the Diamond Factor LLC. I help to empower people to understand their PPD, and that means their purpose, passion, and drive to live their lives because they are awesome and they are wonderful in their own selves. So with that, I do that real quickly. And I'm just gonna get down to business. As everyone knows, this is my third panel that I've been doing. I have a 4 series going on. Been some wonderful viewpoints coming out, some things putting on the table, and then things that we need to move forward in. Because I always tell people, you could talk about the issues all the time, but we got to do a CTA on it. That means call to action. So with that said, in the last few weeks, just to remind people, I don't have to really remind, but just to put it out there, you know, we've been filled with devastating news stories about police killings, you know, Black and brown people in our lives. At this point, it's becoming a too familiar echoing thing. This has been going on for over 200 years. And we're in 2020 and we're still dealing with this. And this is crazy. In July 2014, cell phone video captured of Eric Garner's final words saying to New York cops that, you know, he had his head pinned down and he said, "I couldn't breathe." Died. On May 25th, as we all know, George Floyd, same words were spoken. He pleaded, asked the officer to release him. He had his knee to his neck and he had him pinned down and he passed away as well. Some people said he just didn't pass away. Some people said he was killed. Some people, there's a lot of things going on there. I believe he was murdered, but that's my own take on it. So I wanted to bring this platform together. I said to myself, how can I help? Well, I know that, you know, the virus is going around. I can't really get out that much. So what I told myself, I said, I'm going to use this social media platform to get the word out. So with that, the 4-part series started. Today is our 3rd, and we have some awesome men. Now, you're probably looking at the screen and saying, okay, Barbara, you've been talking. Who are these awesome men that you keep talking about? Well, I'm going to let them introduce themselves individually, and I'm going to ask them because, you know, we all love to talk. Do like a 30-second intro, and then I'm gonna get right into the questions we have for them. So I want to start with Jason first. And I gotta unmute.
Of course you start with me first. That's a setup. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you good.
Okay. Was there a question there?
No, I just need you to do like a 30-second intro of yourself.
Oh, great. I'm Jason Sisneros, also known as the Bald Avenger, chairman, founder of a company called Anton J Global, a company where we help good people make more money, get more time so they can do more good. We're primarily focused around doing philanthropic type work. We do rescues of underage sex slaves that have been abducted. We also work with heavily in domestic violence, and also feeding people with an organization that I happen to be CEO of called Feed a Billion. Is that fast enough?
That's fast, and you're doing an awesome job, Jason. Thank you. Did I lose somebody? I think I lost somebody. Well, we're gonna keep it moving. Next person, Calvin. You're on mute, Calvin. Mute.
Yep, I was 10 seconds into it.
Okay.
My name is Calvin Gibbs. Thank you, Barbara, for hosting this panel. I am a distinguished Toastmaster. I'm a native New Yorker, formerly from Brooklyn, New York. and I am a former theatrical actor, director, writer, and producer with over 12 years of experience in the Chicago area putting on plays. I am also the founder of Born to Speak to You. It is a LLC that promotes motivational speaking. I also am launching pretty soon in the next week or so 140 modules, training modules online to help people that's been affected by the shelter in place, unemployment, so on and so forth, looking to change careers. And all that information is on Born to Speak to You. I'm glad to be a part of this panel, and I look forward to some stimulating conversation.
Thank you, Calvin. Appreciate you. And then I'll go to Harlan.
How you doing, Barbara, and the panel? Prior law enforcement, almost 20 years, prior military. Look forward to contributing to this conversation. And currently I am retired because of injuries on the job. And I'm just glad to be part of this conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Harlan. And Marty.
Thank you, Barbara, for inviting me to this. I'm Marty Jalove. I am the owner, and I just started my third passion of a company called Master Happiness. I realized so early that so many people are dragged down by anger, fear, and sadness. And I just felt my life wasn't like that. I've had a little bit of privilege that I hope to talk about here, but that privilege, I hope to also help so many other people find their path of happiness, not their path to happiness, but their path of happiness. So again, thank you so much, Barbara.
Thank you, Marty. And Barry. He's on mute.
Got it. All right. You correct everybody else, and then your turn, you do the same thing. Wow. Okay. Let's start again. Hi, Barbara. Thank you so much for having me a part of this. My name is Barry Mixon. I am, like Calvin, a native New Yorker from Harlem, New York, in the house. I'm a United States Marine Corps, 14 years experience, Iraq, Afghanistan. I'm a scientist, professional, and international educator, and I am a gemological storyteller. And I have a company called the Gem Hunter, Gemological Appraisals and Storytelling Services, where I use the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones and precious metals to help people discover the value of their own stories. So I look forward to adding the whole history of what's going on to how that fits into directly with the whole gem and jewelry trade, which has been going on since the beginning of time. So thank you for helping me be a part of this.
And Skip.
Hello, Barbara. Thank you, and nice to see you all and meet you. Thanks for inviting me to this. I'm Skip Thomas, and I've in Arkansas now. This is really home, and I'm a filmmaker. Been in production in all kinds of areas. I grew up on Navy bases in California and Florida, and at this point in my life, kind of semi-retired and working on projects through my nonprofit called Amplifying Truth, which is about telling stories using the tools and so forth of the storytelling trade, which film and photography, to tell stories of people on the front lines, making a positive difference in this world.
Awesome. So did I get everybody? Yes, I did. We're missing another fabulous man today. His name was Todd, but he could not make it because his daughter, she had some kind of special thing going on and they moved the time. He thought it was one time and it was, with the time zone. So Todd's going to be coming on the next session I have, and I do appreciate that he was able to still do it in the next session. So with that said,
I was intimidated to come on the same screen as me. Let's just
he
call
didn't
it like
say
it
it,
is.
Jason.
You didn't show up because you were afraid.
Yeah, you guys get at it all the time, man.
Oh my God. I'm in the middle. Okay. Sorry, Todd. So with that said, let me go right into the questions because we got a lot to unpack. So I'm going to start with, and I won't be Jason first. I'll be nice. I'll start with Marty. And everybody, please put, like I said, on mute so we can make sure we hear the question and hear the person answering the question. So Marty, a few days ago, in an interview with the actor and activist Matthew McConaughey, explained with the end goals being that we need to take time now to constructively turn the page in history through some of the righteousness and justifiable changes that's happening. Then he asked the question. Now, this is what Matthew asked the question. He said, how can I become a better human being, a better man, and how do I be a better white man? What are your thoughts on that?
Wow, that's a great question. This is the kind of question I wish I had heard a long time ago so I could have prepared a better answer. But to be, thank you, Barbara. I'll tell you, the information, the things that have happened in just the recent past have affected me so deeply that I am striving now to be a better white man than ever before, just to be a better man. I have worked so hard to be a better man when I look into the eyes of my children. But that idea, when I saw the murder take place on TV, and I'm going to call it a murder because I saw it and that touched me beyond belief, something that I just couldn't handle. I needed to do something. So to become a better man or a better white man, it's got to start with us reaching out and talking to everyone. I am going out of my way every single day and just reaching out to somebody that I haven't talked to in a long time. Some of them are people of color, some are just people I've lost contact with, but just sharing the word and getting the feeling and starting this education. Just start sharing what's going on and get people talking. That's the number one goal. I could keep going, but I don't know how many more minutes I've got out of the two.
No, you did good. I was on mute.
All right. Excellent.
So anybody else want to comment? You know, because I know, like I said, I've given everybody like a 1 minute. They want to comment on the question that I gave Marty. Thank you, Marty.
This is Harlan. I'll comment.
Okay, time ticking.
All right. Like he said, to become a better white man, we just have to become better human beings, period. Meaning, if I see someone that's in need and I can help them, no matter what their race is, their color, or where they come from, I should be willing to help them as a human being. Because when you say better white man, better black man, or better Asian or Oriental, you're still putting that little separation there. If we become better human beings and love each one as we love ourselves, we won't be having all these problems because we'll see each one as we see ourselves. That's all I have.
Okay, good answer. Now remember, like I said, this came from Matthew McConaughey. He's an actor, and he asked the question to the interviewer about how can he be a better white man. So Harlan kind of touched on it to say, you know what, is that still doing division in a sense when he said it that way? Any other comments real quickly?
I'll comment. Skip here. And I did see that. And, you know, and again, I agree totally with Harlan. Growing up on Navy bases, I never saw color. I mean, there were people from different parts of around the world. And my best friend to this day is Tony Anthony, a musician, black friend of mine. We've been best friends as we traveled. I've never seen color, Asian, Hispanic, black, white. And so it was really kind of hard, even when I moved back to Arkansas in high school, because there was a lot of racism and I didn't get it. And so, you know, to be a better person, you know, we look at a lot of the evolution of our lives and the challenges, be it race, be it personal issues. And I went back and listened to Martin Luther King's speech after you called me, Barbara, the I Have a Dream speech. I watched the entire thing and took a lot of notes, only because I used that back in my first job in '85, and I got a lot of criticism. And people said, some people have a problem with that. And I said, well, then that is because you have a problem with that. And to divide people, it's kind of like, what do we want instead? How do we change and shift what we want? And, you know, and I have to applaud you, Barbara, for in the Chemo Buddies group, because you started a movement, you know, the Year of Love, which is we talk a lot about frequencies, and fear and anger and frustration and depression. All those things are very low vibration. You get up above and you get into love and joy and peace, and you get into harmony and things. You know, there's my background as a filmmaker, I was Oz. I was a guy behind the curtain, and I created a lot of propaganda on television. I worked for decades, for 40 years behind the scenes, personally with Bill Clinton for 15 years, Mike Huckabee, probably 400 others, crafting scripts and so forth. And our motto was, it doesn't have to be, it only has to appear to be. Now, I thought I better do something to make up for all my sins. And that's why at this point in my life, I'm really trying to do things to amplify truth. Not that I have the truth, but what is truth? And to me, love is truth. You started an idea of the Love It Festival. You know, it's and there's actually going to be a tour of love we're talking about now. Nobody's heard much about that, but it's kind of like Harlan said, what can we do? What do we want instead? How can we be the change we want to see in the world? And with amazing people like you've got here, we can make that shift, and we can create a new destiny for changes. And it's time. Humanity needs us to be human.
Okay. Thank you,
Hey,
Skip.
Barbara, can I just have 30 seconds?
Nope.
Okay.
Gotta keep it moving. Gotta keep it moving. Sorry, Marty. Hate me later. Okay, next question I have for Barry. Institutional racism, the term was first coined and first used in 1967 by Stokely Carmel. As a historian and professional speaker as yourself, you mentioned there's 7 elements to bring value to a story. I know he's gonna like this one. One of the elements is what antagonist.
Mhm.
How does institutional racism play a role as the antagonist in our lives?
Well, good question. The antagonist is the obstacle. The antagonist is put in movie terms, that's the bad guy. The bad guy is the adversary. So institutional racism automatically says that in the story of people of color, there's already a built-in bad guy. Before you even get to the point of understanding what your story is, you're already dealing with Darth Vader. And that already sets us back because, one, we're not prepared for it. You don't understand what you're going to do with it. And it's in your whole life becomes, this is what you're used to. I think it would probably, I've never lived in a concentration camp, and I've never lived in situations that are that, well, that's a lie. When I was in when I lived in and worked in and served in Iraq and Afghanistan, I was surrounded by people who grew up with horrible impoverished situations, war. I mean, I'm from New York, Calvin's from New York. I grew up in Harlem, the South Bronx, and you grow up with that mentality. So institutional or systemic racism, when you look it up in the dictionary, it already says racism or something that is toxic to the system. So you're growing up in a poisonous environment. I remember the first time growing up I was still in Harlem at that point, and I was a young boy, and the first time someone said the N-word, and I didn't know what it meant, but I remember just the way, and it wasn't even a white guy said, it was a Hispanic person that said it, and I remember going home feeling fearful, just even telling my mother that someone said that, and I didn't know what it meant, but I just knew it was bad. And going to movies, so when you look at Star Wars, 5 minutes into the movie, I didn't know who Darth Vader was, but I knew as soon as I saw him, that's the bad guy. And that's a systemic racism. When you go into a situation, you go into it knowing that you're going to be treated differently. The Marine Corps was the last service to be segregated or basically integrated. So Marines that served before me, we knew that we were going to be seen in a different way, even though we wore the same uniform and fought the same battles. We understand that. So in regards to, if you understand how powerful the antagonist is, and you already know that you grow up, you have a child, and you already know that the bad guy is waiting for you. Put it fast forward. You teach your son or daughter, when a cop drives up behind you, keep your hands on the steering wheel. people who are not people of color do not have to warn their kids. It's just make sure you do your turn signals, stop when you can. But I don't have to warn. I don't think white parents have to tell their sons and daughters to watch out for the cops or what you have to do. So the systemic racism in terms of the antagonist, in terms of the story, totally shifts the story. Little Red Riding Hood grows up knowing the wolf is there to eat her.
Okay.
That's the problem with systemic racism.
Okay, Barry, thank you. So just to remind everybody, I need you to do 2 minutes when you're commenting on your questions. And also, does anybody want to say anything regarding that particular question that Barry had to answer? And you have 1 minute.
I have something to say.
Okay.
This is Harlan from Chicago. I remember when I was in 3rd grade, the teacher said, write down what you want to be. And I wrote down I wanted to be a police officer. She told me, you can be a trash man. I said, no, ma'am, I'm going to be a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And then she got my mom involved. So my mom come to the school thinking I jumped on somebody to beat somebody up. And mom was like, well, what did my son do? She said, well, he said he wanted to be a police officer, and black guys can be police officers, at least not that many. So it's instilled in us by certain people who are supposed to help us learn and develop as little children as well. So that drove me to go into law enforcement, because she told me I couldn't do it. And my parents always told me you can do whatever you want, but you also find what you're looking for. People get new vehicles and say, oh, I'm gonna have a wreck. Within a month, they have a wreck because that's what they're focusing on. If you focus on better, to do better and treat people better, we can all get along better.
Okay, any other comment? One more comment from somebody from the panel regarding that? Jason.
I would just like to say that thank God for adversity. You know, thank God for adversity. Because I mean, Harlan did the opposite, right? What we're told or what we face. And again, I've been told so many times in the last 2 weeks that I'm not black that now I believe it, you know, online, is that I can't speak to that. But what I can say is I can speak to poverty. And I can speak to that upbringing and what that mindset is, and how many times I got told that I couldn't do things. And what I see is systemic, you know, poverty, and especially I'll just take it one step further, systemic poverty mindset is that it was trained into me that I was going to be broke. I was, you know, adopted by a criminal. So I was going to be in and out of the criminal institutions for my entire life. Again, racism, my adopted father was a guy that was a radical. He was a radical racist. He was my adopted father. He wasn't my real dad. And it never sunk into my heart, because I was around other people of color. And one of my guideposts was Martin Luther King, not for a black white thing, but for a hope for escaping my situation thing. Right. And listening to who I needed to be as a man, as somebody that I could look to, because my adopted father was not that person. He went to prison when I was 17 for attempted murder of me and my mom. And so I look back and I get to redefine, right? And this is because it's our actions. It's the men that are on and you putting this thing together, this conversation, that you go back to what Skip said, where he was paid to do propaganda. What looks good, we start to attach ourselves to it. If we all put down our weapons and we all and all of the 300 million people that looked at what happened to George Floyd, we all put down our weapons and we hugged each other, then the politicians just lost all of their control. And you use, you know, a story like Harlan's, which is admirable. And when you're told that you can't do something, it doesn't mean that that's true. It doesn't mean that that's true. It means that you will do whatever it takes to make that happen. That's what we need to be emulating in our society.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate your comments. Okay, we will go. Who do I pick? I'm going to go to Kelvin. So when people state, especially when they talk about Black and brown people, the comment, when I see you, I don't see color. I just see that I care and love you. What do you take from this comment? Does it make you feel better that they should care, or does it take you away from who you truly are as being Black and a brown person? What is your comments on that?
I've heard that comment many times in my life. And when I sit down and really think about it, Barbara, they don't see me. They don't see me at all because that's what I am, a Black man. I see them for who they are, a white person or whoever said it to me. By seeing a person for who they are, you can get into the nature of that person. You can get into the upbringing of that person. You can get into that person's thoughts and how they project themselves. But by saying, I don't see you as a Black person, then damn. I mean, what the hell? All my life, I've been Black. Have you ever, we're talking about institutionalized racism. Growing up in New York, my block was a two-way block, two-way street. I lived in the middle of the block. Some Italian family lived across the street from me. Robert and I would leave our houses at the same time to walk less than a quarter of a mile, half a block to the corner, the main street. He would go left to a store on his side of the block. I would go right to a store 3 doors down once I reached the corner to a store on my side. I get thrown up against the car of the police and checked because I left home. I'm 17. I left home to go 3 minutes from my house, less than 3 minutes, and didn't take ID with me. And I'm on the hood of the car, spread eagle, and they're searching me for I don't know what. And I'm looking over at Robert, and he's going on his merry way. But you don't see me as a Black man? What the hell just happened? That happened to me because I'm a Black man. It didn't happen to him. So I take that with a grain of salt, and I try to understand where people are coming from when they say that. They're saying that they see me as, I would like for them to say that they're seeing me as a human being. I would like to hear that better than I don't see you as a Black. I don't see Black when I see you, because you must see Black when you see me, because that's who I am. And because of the way I was brought up, it's the way I have to live and survive. It's the way I'm going to express myself.
Well put, Kelvin. Thank you so much. Anybody else from the panel want to comment? Marty and then Barry?
Thank you. Kelvin, thank you so much for ending it the way you did. When I was first listening to it, I've heard that conversation, or I've heard that line all the time, I don't see your color. And the first couple of times I heard it, it upset me as well, because I do see color. I do see so many colors. But I do believe what we have to do is we have to dig down deep inside the meaning behind it. The people who say, I don't see color, what they're really trying to say is, I want us all to be equal. I see us all as equals. And maybe it's the wrong words, but let's concentrate on the intent of it, and let's educate those people and say, those words bother me. And I understand what you're trying to say, but let's choose some other words. The other point I want to make about color itself is, as an artist, I have always seen color. I tell people all the time, can you imagine, why would we want to live in a world where everyone is the same color? Why stop there? Let's make all the trees the same color. Let's make the sky the same color. Make all the cars. Let's have the exact same car, the same house. All the birds, the animals should all be exactly the same. Nobody wants to live in a complete gray world. We need this color because everything adds to everything else. It's the beauty behind it, is all the diverse colors, the cultures, the experiences we have. We come together to make with this one beautiful world. So yeah, when somebody asks me, do I see color? Yes, I see color, and I'm so happy I see color. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you. Okay, I think it was Barry, and then I think Harlan, did you have your hand up too? Okay, so
Barbara,
Barry,
Barbara, can I say something for 30 seconds, please?
10 seconds.
10 seconds, okay. Marty, good point. Growing up in New York, it's the melting pot of the world, okay? It's not segregated like Chicago is, for example. And I did come to appreciate color. I get it, but you still have to see the color. You can't just assume people are not, everybody's the same. They're not. That's it. 10 seconds.
Okay, Barry?
That comment as a gemologist, that the whole reason I started my company is because of that comment. Because to me, we're talking about systemic racism. That's one of the comments, because in the gemstone world, the whole history of mankind revolves around gemstones and precious metals. So when you say you don't see color, that's a complete lie. Because first of all, if we lived as human beings in the way we look at gemstones, in the gemstone world, the more color you have, the more value you have. But yet a colorless diamond would never want to be a ruby, because a diamond understands that it comes in every color of the rainbow. You don't look at, you spend tens, J-Lo's ring is a $15 million yellow canary diamond, canary yellow diamond. You don't spend $15 million on that same diamond at Walmart. Are they both diamonds? Yes, but there's things inside of that that gives it that color. So when you think about the history of mankind, England was done by gemstones. A pearl was created. That was the wars between England and Spain over pearls. The whole Asian cultures, you talk about jade, you talk about emeralds. Spain has never recovered from their love of the color green of emeralds. So you're talking about systemic racism. When you say, oh, for human beings, I don't see color, but yet you spend that kind of money on gold and diamonds and gemstones. It's a complete lie. And like what Calvin says, so what you're telling me is Calvin and I are dark-skinned diamonds and Marty is a white diamond. Guess what? There's a market for colored diamonds and there's a market for white diamonds, but we're both diamonds. And do we have different values? Yes, we do. So no, we do not. Well, we'll never live in a world where we're all equal. That's the kind of movies that Skip makes, those mystical, magical movies. Thank you. It's not going to happen. And it's a lie. And that's where the systemic racism starts from. The lie that we tell each other, we're all going to be wonderful. No, we're not.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I got wait one Skip. I go to Harlan because he had his hand up, and then to you. Okay.
Well, first of all, what the cop did to him was wrong, because he just left his house and he was less than a block from his home. That cop should have been disciplined. I worked law enforcement for over 15 years. I worked state, I worked local, and I worked federal. And I've only pulled my weapon twice in 15 years. Second of all, it's nowhere in any law enforcement book or training manual that I have read that you can put your knee on a man's neck or shoot someone when they're down on the ground and they're handcuffed. That's nowhere in there, as long as they're not being combatant. You have to treat them as you would treat your mom when you arrest her or approach her for something that she has done. But they don't do that. And second of all, I don't want to be your equal. I want you to treat me like you would treat your wife or your brother or your sister that you love and care about. You don't never have to treat me as your equal, but treat me as a human being that I am. Because first of all, I'm not going to disrespect you. And second of all, with the experience I have in the military and in law enforcement and growing up in Chicago, I grew up on the west side. I went to school on the north side and I hung out on the south side, but never in a game, and can play ball with anyone, because that's what I was about. I wasn't about gang banging or trying to be who I was not. You can only be who you are. And if they can't accept that, as the Bible says, shake the dust from your feet and carry on. That's how simple it should be. But people make it hard because they think, well, if he gets this, then I'm going to lose that. Instead of looking at, well, if he gets this, I have to go higher to maintain what I want. They don't want to push themselves. They just want to be comfortable and hold everyone else down, and that's wrong.
Okay, I got Skip, and I need to make it a minute, Skip. Okay, sorry.
No worry. No, I started off kind of saying I didn't see color growing up, and on the Navy bases, I mean, my best friends were Black kids, Asian kids, Hispanic. I went to their house. They came, spent the night with me. I didn't know there was supposed to be a difference. Last night I was playing music with a group of people. There was a little, probably a 4-year-old Black child and a 4-year-old white child, and they were playing and having a good time. And I thought, how beautiful it was that. And it's like, do they see it? And so, for me, it's kind of like goes back to Martin Luther King saying, he was introduced as the moral leader of America at the time. And he, one of those comments that was about, I have a dream that my 4 little children one day would live in a nation where they would not be judged on the color of their skin, but on the content of their character. And for me, it's like, there's so many horrible things that have happened in law enforcement, in race and poverty, and sexual abuse. And now it's like, what do we want instead? And how do we shift that? Because all we have right now is now. And so you started this off with solutions, and I'm thinking, how can we be the change we want to see in the world?
Okay. So
can
yeah,
I just give 30 seconds? Because I didn't say anything. what I want to
30
address
seconds.
the actual question, which was, when people say that, my grandpa used to have a saying that said that you won't be offended if you can't be, right? And I'm just going to say that when we say I don't see color, right, then that's like racism it's not in my heart. That's what's being said, right? And if you call somebody black, or you call somebody Mexican, or you call somebody, Japanese, or whatever it is, it's sort of like you get caught in the middle. Like, what do I say that doesn't piss somebody off? Right? I'm not having any kind of racism, or I'm not a racist person. Right. So if it doesn't exist in me, why do I have to, why is there, like, on one side of the equation, I'm going to get, somebody's going to get upset because I say I don't see color. And then on the other side, if I do say color, then I'm going to find myself in trouble too. It's one of those things that again, if you can't be offended, then you won't be. And it's a difficult road for people to walk when people are ready, willing, and able to be upset over no matter what direction you go with your conversation.
So like Jason's point, I know right now everybody's walking on eggshells. I mean, I can feel it when I go to the store. I can feel it when I walk to my car. I mean, I don't even know what to say. People apologizing to me. I'm like, what are you apologizing to me for? I didn't do nothing to you. So I can kind of get what Jason's saying. Is like, okay, which way do I go? Am I going to offend somebody either way? And it's like, you got to put this card up saying, I'm not the one. So
if you're silent, it's deadly. So if you say nothing, you say the wrong thing. If you say this, you say, there's no way to say anything that's right. And even if you shut up, it's like silence is deadly.
But that's systematic racism on both sides. Because I understand your point of view, Jason, and what Marty is. I mean, Marty and I are friends. And so I think it's somewhere in the middle. It's not that I see Marty as a white guy. We make jokes all the time. I will honestly, there's things that white people can do that we can't do. Skip lives in a log cabin. He lives out in the forest. I don't know what it means to live out in the forest, but I'm sure that if I say, hey, you want to live out in the forest? Hey, I got a white guy named Skip in Arkansas that lives in a log cabin. I don't have no friends like that, no black friends like that. I'm going to go to the white guy to learn how to do that. He got a guitar. You know how to shoot. Well, I know how to shoot, but I'm sure he knows how to do stuff that black people can't do. So why can't we live in a world we understand that black people can do things, Mexican people can do things, Chinese people can do things, and yet we find talents in with what we do, and we're still black, white, Chinese, yellow, whatever.
Okay, with that said, I'm loving it. Okay, epic. Okay, with that said, I want to move on to another question. And this is going to go for Jason.
I can't wait, Barbara. I can't wait to see which
Are
one.
you waiting? Is there
Oh my.
anticipation of it? The anticipation, okay. Okay, in the Black and brown race, we usually understand when we hear the term white privileges. What does that mean to you? And when non-Blacks state that, do they do not understand the term? What is your response concerning that regarding injustice?
So the phrase white privilege, right? And the other qualifying thing that you said there is injustice. Okay. When I look at my life, like, and I've really thought about this, like, deeply, and because when somebody says it, I don't want to just offhandedly take the good lives of all of these men that are on this, your life, the people that speak around me. I don't want to just offhandedly go, there's no such thing as white privilege. Like, I don't want to offhandedly say that. What I wanted to do is I wanted to think about it from my perspective. And I look at my life, and I was adopted. He was a masochist. He beat me like, 15, 16 times, broke my nose, went to prison for attempted murder. I was delivering drugs for him when I was 12 years old. My mom was working 3 jobs. She was, she got beat incessantly. We were standing in line for government cheese, and government powdered milk was just disgusting, but all of this stuff. And I think to myself, where was my privilege? Right. When I honest to God, and I'm answering this, and I hope everybody here feels my heart in this answer, is that I don't believe that there's such a thing as white privilege. And because the reason why, and I'll explain this with all the love in my heart that I can, is because when I look at my life, when I know other of my white brothers and sisters, my black brothers and sisters, my Hispanic, my friends, Misfit Nation, it's made up of all kinds of crazy people, right? And it's a place of acceptance. But I look at it and I go, for me as an individual, I have not experienced anything that I can recognize as white privilege. Now, if I do, now I have to feel guilty about something that I don't feel in my heart because somebody else wants to look at that as an advantage. I look at, man, there's all kinds of advantages to being black. There's all kinds of advantages to being Hispanic. There's all kinds of advantages to being Asian. Like, there's all kinds of privilege, if we're going to look at it that way, in each and every one of us, if we choose to look at it that way, right? And again, I can only answer this with truth. I cannot acknowledge something that I have, that I believe that I have not been blessed with. I've had the hard fight for everything that I've gotten. And I do it with a great heart and a great mind. And when I was working in my younger years with blame, I blamed my adopted father. I blamed the police because I was being arrested left and right because I was breaking the law. And then, and I was blaming society and whoever was president at the time, when really it boiled down to the fact that it was up to me how I was going to interact with the world. And the privilege that I do have is one of love, and being able to fall in love with people instantaneously and have them lose that love or not love, but the relationship by their behavior, and not have it be anything about that. So that's my honest to God answer. And I know that that's not popular. You're on mute, Barbara. See, we get to tell you're on mute now.
Really?
I
know y'all love that, don't you? Y'all love that, don't you? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm off mute now. I was trying to say thank you, Jason, so much for your comment, and keep it at 1 minute because I see 2 people that want to comment on this, because we still got to get through a few other questions. So I'm going to start with raising a hand. I see Harlan had his hand raised.
All right, I understand Jason's point, but he's a small percentage of his ethnic background. When I worked local law enforcement, I took several inmates to court. One had violated parole 14 times, and because his parents was friends with the judge, he got put back on parole. A black guy got in a fight. They found drugs by him, said it was his. He said he'll be judged by the judge instead of a jury, and the judge gave this young black kid 15 years, and he's never been in trouble. It was a straight A student that got in a fight, and they found drugs by where he was fighting. So when they say white privilege, that's not every Caucasian in the United States. Those are the ones who have power, money, and the will to spend money with lawyers who can find a way to bend the law. Because if Jason would have broke probation 16 times, he'd have been locked up. The average black man would have broke probation 4 times. He'd have been locked up. This kid violated probation. They found him with drugs, and he was 2 states from the state where he was supposed to be. So white privilege still exists. It just depends on how much money you have and who you know to get that privilege.
So Harlan, I've been waiting to ask this question of somebody with your background, with police, military, all that kind of stuff. So when you're a wealthy Black person, right, and you have a relationship with a judge, and you can afford that good attorney, I 100% agree with you with what you just said. But does it become Black privilege because they can get their child out of that scenario, or was it poverty?
Well, Michael Vick had money. He got locked up for dogfighting. Bill Cosby got locked up. There was a alderman down here by the name of Charles Walker. They said he falsified evidence about how much his newspapers were circulated, and he got locked up. All these guys have money and they knew judges, but they still got locked up. Well, there are other people in the mainstream who did the same crimes that Bill Cosby did, and they're still walking around, and they done worse and did more.
So the guy with Enron, right? He had a bunch of money and a lot of great. He was a white guy, a lot of money. Broke the law, went to prison, ended up dying in prison, right? And so I'm just
a small percentage too,
right? I'm so curious, but prisons are full, of people on both sides of those spectrums, but for the most part, people with money get out of their trouble a lot easier than those of us that are broke.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where the privilege come in. Because you got the money, you can.
And that
you can
privilege,
get
I'm gonna have
the
to
lawyer.
move it on. I'm gonna have to move it on.
You got Barbara privilege.
I think Barry had his hand up. Did you have?
Calvin did.
Calvin. Okay, Calvin. Go ahead, Calvin.
I just want to say, Jason, I definitely understand where you're coming from, but white privilege to me also includes, did you know who your father was growing up?
Nope.
Did you live in a place where you were accepted? Did you go to college on something other than an athletic scholarship? Two people go for a job, you're both qualified. Did you get the job because you're white? And I understand your situation and what you went through, totally get that. But I recently saw a video, a bunch of kids lined up like they're gonna have a race. The coach said, I got $100 bill. I'm gonna put it at the end zone. Take 2 steps forward if you knew who your father was. Take 2 steps forward if you never went to bed hungry. Take 2 steps forward. And so many kids have moved forward. You told them to turn around and look at the Black kids at the starting line. You guys are going to get the $100 bill before these guys even get a chance to get started running for it. To me, that is white privilege.
I saw that video too. It was very impactful to me to watch. And all of those questions that you asked were no. I had to become a businessman because there was nobody in the world that would have hired me. I wouldn't have hired me. I had a criminal record, and my family I didn't know who my dad was. And the dad that actually adopted me beat me incessantly. Like I wish I would have had no daddy, And so I think, so again, I think about the things that are about to come out of my mouth and go, Jason, you're going to sound like a dick. I don't mean that. I don't mean to. But when I look at the situation that you just said, I had all of those thought processes where I built up all these walls of resistance that were around me. And other people. And I've watched my Black brothers. I have some dear Black brothers that I've watched break down. They get rid of that. Everything is set up against me and I can achieve and overcome no matter what. And I watch that. It's inspirational to watch. It's what, Martin Luther King, one of my great heroes, also on the white side. And there's people that I respect and love. And the more things that we put up as barriers that may not be our own barriers. They may be a systemic barrier, but we can overcome them as individuals when we apply success principles. Now, again, I'm not arguing that that white people haven't had it easier. Like 70+% of the country's white, they're going to have more relationships. There's probably, there's all kinds of things that are embedded in that. but it wasn't my experience. And I was able to overcome all those barriers because people looked me in the face and said, Jason, you can have excuses or you can have success. You can't have both.
Okay.
Wait, I had my hand up before you, Barry. I just got to
Okay.
come in with 10 seconds.
See
Time-
white privilege. See
time
white
out.
privilege.
White
Kid.
No.
I'm putting mutes. I'm putting mutes. I'm
Just
putting
real-
mutes.
Just real quick. You know what, Jason, I'm listening to you. And the bottom line to me was this: all things being equal, I know that I'm going to get the step forward before my Black friends. I grew up on the west side of Humboldt Park in the city of Chicago. 9 of us living in a 3-bedroom apartment. I had government cheese and powdered milk, and maybe I'm the only one who liked the powdered milk. But anyway, when you look at it right now, I admire this guy, Barry, who's in this group here. He is one of these people I look up to. I believe he's smarter than me. He's a better storyteller than me. There's so many wonderful things about him. But I'll tell you what, the 2 of us walk into a room together, I am going to be treated better than he is. And that is what white privilege is. It's just me getting a little bit of an extra edge because of the color of my skin. And you know what, Jason, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying you lived a lucky life because you weren't exposed to it. I've seen it because I knew the politicians and the police officers in the city of Chicago who warned me as a little kid to stay away from Blacks.
You're the first person in the world that said I lived a lucky life.
The mistake, what I'll say is this: the mistake or the difficulty that you're having, Jason, is what you're describing is not white privilege. It's privilege, it's economic privilege, but white privilege is the concept of you never have to think about a white cop putting your knee in your neck. When is the last time you heard a story of a white man having his knee on his neck by a black cop? Never. When's the last time you heard of a white man running down the street jogging and just being shot just because? There's things that you never have to consider. That's what white privilege is. It's not, and I appreciate your story, but what I'm saying is you and I are both bald men. We're pretty much the same size. We both have goatees. There are places that you can go, as Marty said, that you do not, if a cop car came, and we're both driving, if a cop car came up behind you, you're never thinking in the back of your head, is today the day that I get shot? That's not even a thought. That's what white privilege is. The white privilege is that we have to think about those things. I spent 14 years in the United States Marine Corps. Okay, I got ribbons, medals, all kinds of stuff. I still went to Northwestern University. I can still get on the elevator and I will have a woman move her purse over or move over just because. That's white privilege. If I go into a black Walgreens and I go into a white Walgreens, the shaving cream will be locked up in the black Walgreens, whereas in the white Walgreens, it's freely open. That's white privilege. The things that you think about, and I love going to white stores. Why? Because I do not have to deal with the stuff that I have to deal with in my own community. That's what white privilege is. It's not that white folks ain't had a hard time. We're not saying that. White privilege is that there's things that never come to your mind, that you never even have to factor in to your life. Black people, as a black man, I put Marine Corps stickers on my car. Know why? Because a lot of cops are Marines and there's less chance of me being arrested or being stopped while driving black. You don't have to do that. You're just a white guy. Hey, how you doing? You might have broke the law, but I broke the law just by the fact that the color of my skin, and I had the nerve and the audacity to get in the car and to drive. That's white privilege.
Okay, great. That's a fantastic explanation. What can I do about my white skin, and what can you do about your black skin?
Can I answer real quick, Barbara?
Yeah, I really want to know.
You know what you did? You actually did it. You know what to me, the answer is? The answer is telling people stories. Because once I heard your story, and it's just like sports. You notice how we can all go to sports games and we can root for the same team. And when the Cubs won, you could have been from Mars, and I would have hugged you because you were a Cubs fan. When I heard your story, now we're like, and my father was my mother. Now, once we start learning each other's stories, then we can come together. Now we're like, oh, your experience is my experience. Oh, okay. That's why I'm a storyteller, because once you begin to understand stories, once you begin to understand, oh, damn, you had powdered milk, I had government cheese, and we start talking like that, then that's cool. Then it's we go beyond white or black. Okay, then we start having similarities in our stories that transcends the color of our skin, just like we do with sport. When Michael Jordan was bouncing the ball, we didn't care what color he was. He played for the Chicago Bulls, and you loved anybody who loved the Chicago Bulls. It's only once we begin to understand each other's stories, that's when the value comes in. Nothing has value without a story. So when you told your story just now, I was thinking, that's it. That's the answer. Now that I didn't know, I've seen some of your posts, and to be honest with you, I was just like, who is this guy? But now that you told me that you got I'm going to say it, you got your ass beat as much as me and you were cool. Me and you were, my whole ass, and I'm telling the truth. My whole attitude was like, oh, I like Jason.
Mute. 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 Okay. That's why I have control. On that point, I got to ask my panel this. We are in an hour and we still need to get to two other questions and two other wonderful men on this panel. And then that last part where I need everybody to talk about where do we go from here? And that's 1 minute for each person. If we can please keep it that way. So I'm asking the panel, do you mind if we go 10 minutes over? Are we good with that? I mean, this is good conversation too. And I'm getting a lot of people. I'm doing the background too, because I got people asking me questions.
What we got to do to get the questions done.
Okay, I gotta do that. Okay. So with that said, I love mute.
Don't mute me. I can unmute myself. I have control of my system.
Anyway, so moving forward, the next question I'm going to go to is Skip. So Skip, when it comes to all the protesting, rioting, and destroying of the properties, homes, what are your thoughts? And do you think this is a solution to the problem of injustice for the Black and brown race? And just to add to that, I seen a commentary the other day saying that the reason why the Blacks are destroying some of the property and stuff, because they said they don't own it. So they said they're going to destroy it because they don't really own the property. So with that said, what's your take on that, Skip? 2 minutes.
No, it's not a solution in that, and I'll go back to Martin Luther King's comment that you can't solve darkness with darkness. Only love can do that. And that goes to your comment. We have been, again, if you step out and look how so many, and this is my job. This is what I did for 4 years. I was a storyteller. I've won Emmys. I've won all kinds. I've done hundreds of political campaigns for presidents, for governors. And I was the man behind the curtain, and I created a counterfeit reality. If they told me I need to get everybody believing that the sky is pink and not blue, piece of cake. I could get all y'all believing that it's pink. Because if I throw enough money at it, if I get enough scientists saying that this and this, we put it on TV, we get the right people, scientists and people talking about it, politicians talking about it, government, health department, the World Health Organization, we put enough money at it, I can create that propaganda. And what I used to do, and again, going back to stories, I mean, it was to look at who is my audience. Are they white, Black, rich, poor? What are they interested in? Do they lean left, right? Are they religious, whatever? And I looked at it, how do I create the perpetrator? Kind of like one of you guys were talking about. How do I create the perpetrator? And then how do I make this person feel like they're the victim? And then this is going to be the solution. You got to buy that solution. That's what I did for a living. And I won lots of awards. To end that, my story is, the reason I'm here is my family, my roots. And my family was Native American, Cherokee. And my great-great-grandfather was named Spotted Horse. He was a chief right here in this area. And he was pushed out of this beautiful land with springs and water on the Trail of Tears where 15,000 people died. He didn't make it to Oklahoma. He either escaped or died. He left my great-grandmother, Julie, she was light complected, and he left her with a white family just because he thought she could blend in as a white person. And she was treated like a slave pretty much by this white family. But that's how, for me personally, it's, you know, this whole thing of how can we be the solution? How can we be the change? And it goes to frequency. Are we going to be in a state of anger, fear, frustration, depression? Or do we start to move it up the ladder to love, to joy? And how do we hug each other? Like I think it was Barry said, you know, how do we come together and say, yes, we've got all this crap. And yes, you know, we can compare tattoos and all that, but how do we actually solve this? And that's what I'm interested in, to leave a legacy of being a part of that solution.
Okay, thank you, Skip. Maybe two people to kind of go back on the question about, I know Skip went into other things, but about protesting and rioting, and is that solving the problem? Some Black people are like, it's not mine, you know, I'm basically doing this because I don't own it. Technically, they don't own it. So any other thoughts on that? I got Harlan, then I got Marty.
Harlan, you can go first if you'd like.
He's on mute.
If he's frozen, I guess I'll go first.
Yeah, go
All right.
first. Keep it going.
Okay, I just wanted to say that, no, I don't believe that the looting and the vandalism is the right answer, but I do believe it's the inevitable answer. If you're pushed far enough, I don't care who you are, if I'm standing in a bar and someone is poking me and poking me and poking me, eventually I am going to swat their hand away. As much as I'm going to keep calm, eventually I'm going to explode. The other thing is that we have to keep remembering that the media is only going to sensationalize the violence, because that's what their job is. Their job is to show us all the stuff that is contrary to regular day-to-day life. If it was always a peaceful protest, we would get tired of these peaceful protests so quickly. So you've got a variety of people here. You've got protesters, you've got vandals who are doing this, and they're hurting the area on purpose because they get a kick out of it. You've got thieves that are breaking into buildings and stealing stuff. And then you've got antagonists who are going in and pushing it, knowing we got a powder keg and they're going to light the fuse to let the whole thing explode. You got this variety of people. But the protesters, the actual protesters who are just saying, please hear what I've got to say, we have to support them 100%. But we also have to realize that that other stuff, the violence that's going to happen, is going to happen no matter what goes on.
Okay, Harlan, I think he's unfroze.
Yeah, I'm back. Like he said, the protesters, it brings attention to the problem that's going on, because it's been going on. But the real problem lies at the top. Not once have he said, America, we need to pray to come together as one nation. Not once has he apologized for anything he has said out to left field. If there was any other president before him that said half the things he said, they'd been out of office right now. So the big problem starts up top. Example, he said, I support peaceful protesters, but then you turn around and have the riot police shoot rubber bullets and tear gas to clear you a path to a church where you don't even know the proper way to hold the Bible. That creates tension in itself among other law enforcement and the National Guards that you're putting on the street, because you're not thinking about the people aspect. First of all, everybody's been locked down for more than 60 days. Some people don't have a job anymore. A lot of jobs have folded up and closed because there's no revenue coming in or going out. But you think it's okay to put National Guards on the street and tell people, if you're a peaceful protester or we think you're doing something, we're going to lock you up and do whatever we need to do to get you off the street. That is not the answer as a president of the United States. And that's all I had to say about that.
Okay, Barry?
Again, to me, nothing has value without a story. I think the reason why African Americans or Black and brown people are burning up their own places is because they don't value it. There's no value. The story, systemic racism has made us as a people, as a community, devalue ourselves. So it's no longer important for us to have. I live on the east side of Chicago, right near. So literally 73. I live on 7300. So all the stores, 75th Street, 87th Street, 95th Street, 71st Street, all these stores are burnt down. I was out yesterday. I have to drive all the way to Hyde Park, good 2-3 miles away, to just go to Walgreens. And if we took pride in our own things, then those things wouldn't happen. I understand the frustration, but again, it's a matter of pride, because those same looters, if you gave them a brand new pair of Jordans, I bet you any amount of money. I work in the public school system. When kids get new sneakers, they don't even want to walk on them. They walk on their heels, so they don't want to crease them. Why? Because they value their shoes. If a kid was ready to shoot somebody, yo, I'm gonna shoot you, and you go, no, man, don't shoot him. That's Kanye. That's Kanye West. Oh, sir, I'm sorry. Why? Because he values Kanye West. If you value something, you're not going to hurt it. You're going to take care of that. But because and going back to Harlan's point, because the president or the administration has devalued even that white man who's 75 years old. He's 75 years old. He fell, cracked his head open. And what's the thing? Let's devalue him. Let's make him a terrorist. Now, everybody saw it. There was no terrorist in it. That was somebody's grandfather. That could have been any one of our grandfathers, okay? He looked like a nice guy just looking at him. And yet the first thing the media does, or the president does, or the administration, is devalues a person. So once you're devalued, the fact that he cracked his head almost open, it's okay. He's a terrorist. Who cares? That's a military tactic. If you want to get the enemy, you devalue the enemy. They did it in World War II. The Japanese, all Japanese are bad. So what did they do? They put Japanese people who lived in this country in concentration camp. What do they do right now? They have Hispanic people in cages. Why? Because we've devalued Hispanic people. So once you devalue something, once you take the story for somebody, it has no value. So again, to Jason's point, once you understand something, the story of something, then you value them. Now you have a whole different opinion. Once I know Jason is a Yankees fan and I'm from New York, you're a Yankee. Oh man, I love you, man. I don't care what you say. You're a Yankee fan. I got you, man. And you got a bald head. Me and you are cool. Bet.
Okay. And Skip said he got one too.
And Skip too.
Barbara?
Yes.
Just real quick, a African proverb came to mind about the question of whether the rioting and burning and stuff is justified. And the African proverb goes, the child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. The child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. That's it.
That's deep.
Powerful. That's powerful. And I want to address Harlan's, there's a counterpoint to Harlan, not that I disagree with some of the theatrics. Again, if you follow me or know me at all, I'm just as critical. But at the end of the day, what Skip said so early, so powerfully early, was, it's what it looks like versus what you're told. And I look at, what Biden and Clinton did in the prison reform, that act did actual damage, right? And then, and you look at what Trump did with the first act and all that, which has let out a lot of the mistakes that were made by those earlier deals. Like, there's good and bad in all things, in all administrations, but President Trump has done some really great things in the Black community that I don't think get recognized enough.
Okay, we're good, everybody. We're moving along. Okay, I gotta get to.
I don't know if I like how Harlan's looking at me right now.
I know, it's like I didn't know. I was like, should I move on? Okay, so now that he mentioned Harlan, I got his question last on the panel. Okay, so When it comes to preparing and discussing the injustice and racism that has been a problem for over 200 years, how would you approach and explain that to children that are innocent to the issue? Because there's a difference between you have to explain to your Black children compared to, I hate to say, your Caucasian children or other minorities. So how would you approach that?
Well, it reminded me of a story I seen once. It was during the Vietnam era. I was young, but there was a Vietnam kid holding a Black kid while bombs were dropping. They didn't care about the color of their skin. That is something that is taught. That's why the term generational curse comes along. If you teach your child to hate because of the color of someone else, then he's going to grow up and teach his child to hate. Just like law enforcement has proven that the average man that sees his mother get abused by the father, he turns around and do the same thing because he was not taught how to love or nurture a woman. So he's doing what he was taught. As long as you have people in position having babies or adopting babies and teaching them the wrong, it's going to continue. And explain that to a little kid, like my parents explained to us, you find what you're looking for. If you go out there and you're looking for certain things, you're going to find them sooner or later. So if you're taught hatred and your parents let you out the house with that hatred in you, you're going to find the reason to hate whatever. If there's a bird that flies in your way and you want to shoot that bird because you just have that hate in you. Once it's in you, it's hard to dig it out. It's like a weed. You can cut the top part off, but if you don't get down there and get to the root of the source of the matter, then it's going to constantly come back. And a child is like an empty computer or an empty zip drive. Whatever you put in there, that's what's going to come out because that's what he knows. The first 4 years of a baby life determines usually their actions as they grow up because they get used to doing what they're doing. And we've all seen it. A parent tells a 6-year-old child, no, you can't have this. And he stomp his feet at his mom and say, yes, I want it. You're going to get it for me. And she gets it because when he was younger, she let him have his way. And now it's too late to change him because he's already programmed. You have to deprogram him and program him over like they did you in basic training. Certain things you knew, you got to keep. But what you didn't know, they pulled it out of you and put in what they wanted you to have to make you a soldier, a Marine, a salesman, a sailor, or airman. They program certain things into you. That's why they want to get you right after high school where you're still programmable. And it has to stop. It has to start with the mothers because the mothers are the nurture of the child. If the mothers let the dads keep doing it, then the situation is going to constantly go on repeatedly. And it has to start with the mothers who turn a deaf ear when their child come home and say, oh, dad told me it was okay to do this or do that. My mom didn't do that. If dad was wrong, he was wrong. If mom was wrong, she was wrong. And we sat down as a family and we talked about it and we found a solution. But they don't want to do that no more. They just want to do whatever.
Okay. So if there's two people on the panel want to kind of, add to this, but I want to add something to that. So now when dealing with, and I mentioned Black and non-Blacks basically. So there's two teachings here. I know you said it's taught, people could teach hatred or whatever to your child, but how do you explain, like you have Jason, he's a father, Marty, he's a father. How do they have to explain when you think about it, the white side of racism and the Black, because their Black friends or whatever, like we were saying earlier, they might get pulled over, which their daughter or their son, they might not get too much, that. So as a white dad, do they have to explain both ends of it? And as a Black father, the same thing.
Yes, you
Anybody
have to
want to
explain
answer
both ends. You have to explain both ends because if you don't, you're leaving the gap. As when I was growing up and I learned to drive, do what the cops ask you to do. As it was said earlier, keep your hands on the steering wheel and answer their questions. Don't raise your voice, turn your music down. I'm a grown man now, I'm 55. I reside in Georgia. When I get stopped, the first thing I do is turn on my interior lights so they can see I'm the only person in the car. And then I keep my hands on my steering wheel, turn my music down and put all my windows down so they can see there's nothing else in the car, which lessens my chances of being hurt. But I've been in the car with a white coworker that I work with, and he was doing well over 85 and got stopped. And because he was Caucasian, the cop said, well, you know what? If you really want no traffic, I'm gonna let you guys go. And that's part of that privilege kicking in.
Okay, before
Because
we
when
go,
a
because
cop
we
pull
talked
up
about,
behind
I
him,
cut you off, I gotta cut you off, because we're going into other subjects here. I want to stay on the topic. So any other people on the panel want
it's
to
hard to
discuss about?
explain that. It's hard
I
to
gotta keep
explain
it
that to
moving, Harlan.
kids
I gotta keep it
because you
moving.
can.
I gotta keep it moving. Sorry, Barry.
As a parent, I'm just gonna be honest. There's such thing. I think all Black parents learn this thing is called the Black tax. You have to be better. As an African, as somebody who grew up in the 60s, my mother and my mother was an alcoholic and all kinds of stuff. But the one thing that I truly appreciated, my mother told us point blank, do not come home with anything less than a B. Because again, systemic racism. If you go to an inner city school in the city of Chicago, all they have to look at is your zip code. If they see your zip code, you went to that school as a professional educator for the Chicago public school system, I can guarantee that what you're getting in the Black schools is not the same thing that Marty's getting in Lake Zurich. I work with kids that live in Lake Zurich. I work with Chinese kids. I asked Marty's group, what there was about 10, 15 kids, literally middle schoolers and high schoolers. Let's deal with the middle schoolers. I said, what's your favorite subject? You know what they said? Math, integrated calculus, physics. These are 11th graders. I teach Chinese kids in Shanghai. You know what they asked me to do the other day? Mr. Mix, Professor Barry, what? Can you teach us the whole history of the Civil War? I said, wait a minute, what do y'all want to learn? We want to learn about Chattanooga, Battle of Shiloh, and Antietam. I said, y'all are 10 years old. We know, we want to learn the whole thing. I would never get that from a Black kid. I would think I was in another planet. So let's just be honest. You have to prepare as a parent. I have to prepare my Black child to compete with not just white kids, Chinese kids, Mexican kids, because kids from other countries, they're ready to go. They are ready to really compete. And if we're not doing that as Black parents, we are continuing the process of racism. So we have a responsibility as a Black man. I have a responsibility to teach children overall, but to make sure Black kids are prepared for the 21st century, because we are not. I have kids that had 3rd grade reading levels and they was in the 8th grade.
Okay, one more comment before we move on? Any other comments?
I'll just say that the solution to a lot of this gets handled, and this is what I truly believe in my heart, with education and financial strength. And that's I just believe a lot of this evaporates when you have equal footing for education, expectation of parents, right? You got to get off their screens and stop delegating, raising their kids to a screen and wondering why this stuff is happening. And then we got to teach about wealth building. Because wealth is something that is, nothing will change. Nothing will change until we can change the ability through education for all of our people. It doesn't matter what color you are, that you're not going to change your stars through wealth. I can go on and say whatever I want to now, nowadays, because you can't cancel me. Those days are over. And I worked my ass off to get there, right? So I can say and have an honest conversation and not have to hide behind, if somebody thinks that Jason said the wrong thing, that they can cancel me, right? Because that's the only way we're ever going to have really good conversations, is if Harlan and I can radically disagree on things and then come together in a conversation and come up with a better solution that either one of us could have come up with. That's the only way that if you cancel me out, now Harlan's never going to be able to sharpen his sword, right? If you cancel Harlan out because of his skin color, I'm never going to get to sharpen my sword. It's about that conflict and that friction that taught in a way that we don't hate each other, and that causes something to be better off. And I think that there's a lot of examples of that in the world. within all evidences, in all races, in the level of standard of every human being, no matter who you are in the United States, compared to where we were 100 years ago, 50 years ago, or in a lot of other countries right now.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. So just to let everybody know, because me and Harlan's playing playing mute buttons here. I put you on mute because there's the sound. Sometimes there's static and stuff. So it's not so much I'm just trying to shut you down. Okay, Harlan? Okay, Barry. Okay, so now we're going to get to, since we got all through the questions, which you all did an awesome job. Now I want to do, I always ask 1 minute, but you always go over the 1 and 2 minutes. So we want to hear, because my thing is, okay, we got the viewpoints out and everything. Now we want to talk about, where do we go from here? What's the next step? What's the CTA, as I call it? What's called to action? Because we can talk all day, just like Jason said, we could sit there and have parties, drink on screen and everything, but if we're not doing anything, it's still going to be the same thing. So I want to get your take, each person, just give me 1 minute on what you think the next action, how should we move forward? So I'm going to start with Calvin. He's on mute.
You're on mute.
Okay. There's a quote by Benjamin Franklin that says, justice, and I'm going to add to that, equality, will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. So where do we go from here? For African Americans and everybody that is now on the side of seeing how things actually are, keep the pressure on, get organized. Without organization, things can fall apart very quickly. There's protests in all parts of the country and all parts of the world. I see the need for organization, planning, maybe boycotts of things in the economy. I know I've been hearing things about boycotting stores around 4th of July, hitting somebody where the money pocket is. Economics is a good way to bring a point forward. So where do we go from here? I think we organize and plan strategically to get to the goal that we're trying to get to. Thank you.
Thank you, Calvin. Okay, next, Marty.
Thank you. Kelvin, I want to say I love that proverb you showed, or you shared with us. There is another thing, I think it's called the Circle of Courage by the Lakota Sioux, which is the Native Americans throughout the Midwest here. And they break it down into 4 components. And I think it's so important for us to get back to that basics. It's called a feeling of belonging, mastery, independence, then generosity. What we need to do, as all of us, as us older gentlemen here, we are at the point in our life that we should be in our generosity stage. In other words, I should be helping all those who are in a misfortune, in an injustice position. I should help them up. And what I've got to do is I've got to give all my brothers and sisters, whether it's my actual brothers and sisters, the kids that I teach, the people I work with, the people that I play with, everyone I know, I've got to give them the feeling of belonging, that they're part of this tribe, this greater tribe, that we're willing to help. Then I've got to be able to teach them everything I know. I will share everything I know to the point that they become masters at that, so that they can find their inner story, the thing that they are, and they can become fantastic at that. Only then do they become truly independent, and then you give them the ability to fail. But once they become independent and they grow, then they become the generous spirits, and they pass that on to the next generation. But we've got to do this all together. It can't be, I'm going to be greedy and just keep my stuff to myself. No, I'm not part of just a small group. I am part of everybody. And that's why I'm willing to give everything, all the knowledge I know and all the knowledge I pick up all the time, I'm willing to share with everyone all the time. And I think that's the thing we've got to do. And if I see somebody hurting, you're right. whatever the color of their skin is, I'm going to help them up, and I'm going to make sure that their tomorrow is better than their today.
Okay.
Back to you, Barbara.
Thanks, Marty. Okay, Barry.
In terms of racial harmony, I'm going to donate my 1 minute to my brother Skip. One, I want to go to his cabin, so I'm going to donate my minute to Skip. That's all I'm going to say. Go ahead, take it away, Skip.
Skip.
He was going to take
God.
it anyway.
That's right. God bless you, Barry. Yeah, come on down. Yeah.
That privilege.
We'll do some canoeing and play some basketball and hang out together, play some music. Again, I want to say back, it's harmony. And again, it's the frequency, and we talked about that. But so what I'd like to do is also remind what I started off saying as a professional propagandist of helping create counterfeit illusions in advertising and politics and healthcare. I mean, I did a lot of things that weren't very good in my life as far when I knew they were really wrong, but I got paid a lot of money in advertising in the media. And so when somebody said at the top, I think it was Barry, I know where the top is. And this, if you look around the international world, the yellow vests and all these countries and things that are happening, the people at the top, and it's bigger than just what's happening in this country. And that's a lot of what I work in terms of information. And if it doesn't have to be, it only has to appear to be. And the goals are the power and money. One of you guys said it, it's about power and money in control, and divided, we're weak. And when they've got us divided, going back to harmony, we're weak. If we can divide us by poverty, religion, race, all these things. And that's what I did for 40 years. Well, 30 years. I left and went to Sedona because I actually thought of that or commit suicide. I thought, I can't do this anymore. I went to the woods. I said, God, if this is it, you can fucking have it, because I'm not doing this anymore. And I prayed, and then I didn't get an answer. I got a question. And the question is, Skip, what's the legacy you want to leave? And I thought, I've got kids. And it's about being part of the solution. And if we can come together and be stronger together and figure out ways not to be divided and work together. Come on down, Barry. I've got a place. You can have we got a loft here and a bed. We'll do some fishing, whatever you want to do. We got it all here. So you just reach out and we'll get together. But love you all. Barbara,
that was worth 1 minute. That was worth, when I'm quiet, that was worth 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. Barbara, you've done an amazing job. Thank you for inviting me.
We're not done yet, but thank you, Skip. We're almost there. So I have to get Harlan because he's been very patient. I'm going to let Jason do the last part of it. Harlan.
Well, I want to thank you for having me on the panel with these awesome guys. But my final thought is, all of us are here because it started at home. We were disciplined at home. We were taught right from wrong at home. And until the parents take that back, because the government can't raise a family, the parents have to take back the authority to raise their children in the right way. That's why they have the children, to train them in the way they should go, so when they get older, they won't stray away. That's in the Bible. That's God's word. It starts with the parents. And if the parents do right, then everyone else will start doing right.
He's on mute. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. He's froze. That it wasn't me. It wasn't me, like the song says.
It wasn't you. But again, it starts with the parents, because a child learns their first 4 years, they learn from what's in their household and what's been given to them by their parents and their siblings and their loved ones. So it still starts with the parents to stop what's going on. And with this new generation, the way they're intermingled and socialize with each other, I think that's going to happen. And the powers that be don't want that to happen, because like he said, they want to keep us separated. But we have to come together as the human race and let them know we're better than this. We're not taking your propaganda anymore, and we're going to do better as a people. That's it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And Jason.
That was powerful. Barry, Harlan, Skip, Marty, Calvin, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I'm really grateful. Barbara, amazing men, like amazing men. And I would be happy to go anywhere, do anything you guys need me to do. And that's sort of this last statement that you are asking us to say is that what do we do, right? And coming from a perspective, when I learned about trafficking, I learned that there's 10 million little girls and little boys that are being trafficked. That's a number that I can get my hands around. What can you do, Jason? Well, you can go undercover and rescue some of them. You can help us at the political level. You can help us in the aftercare. You can help raise money. Thank you. Now I've got something to measure. When we got into domestic violence, there's a woman that is trapped in her home being beat by her significant other every 11 minutes. Okay, 11 minutes. That's something I can measure. Right now, how can we do that? Well, we can have, when they come out, we've got homes for them to go to. We can get their teeth fixed. We can get them off drugs. We can go and do prison outreach to the men. We can do that stuff. I know how to impact it, right? When we talk about food, there's somebody that died every 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Somebody just died from starvation, not from starvation or hunger related issues, plain starvation. And I look at these things and I can get my arms around them and I can define them, right? What I'm looking for, and again, from the deepest part of my heart, is I'm looking for someone in the Black community to tell me, what do you need Jason Sisneros to do and how do we measure it? I've been asking that over and over and over again. How do we measure the content of someone's heart, whether they're racist or they're not? And what can I do? Right? Whether it's raising money, I just think that negative impact things that we talk about, they don't work, because the thing that carries us along is inspiration. Like what is it that you'd like? Because I know everybody that's around me, they wouldn't be around me if they were racist. We're looking for a solution. And when we ask those questions online, I know specifically me, death threats, called a racist, all of these things. And I don't care. I'm just going to keep asking because I want to impact the future of this country. I know my Black brothers and sisters, the value they have. Irk Phillips and the people that my life would not be the same without my Black brothers, my Hispanic brothers, my white brothers, all of us together. But I got to know what to do. And when I see looting and burning and all that kind of stuff, there's no moral equivalency. What happened to George Floyd was wrong because it was murder, right? When you burn down somebody else's property, it's wrong. You should go to jail. When you steal something that isn't yours, there is no moral equivalency. And when we try to make one, we lose all of the effort and the energy that we had behind a righteous cause, because now we see that, and instead of calling right, wrong, we have a moral equivalency, and it's difficult for people to dig into. Number one. And number two is they have their own pain. Nobody cares about my pain. That's why I talk very little about it. They don't care about my pain because they've got rent to pay. They've got a car payment to make. They've got their own history. They've got their own pain, sickness, death, suicides, cancer, all the things that they have to deal with. So if you're going to ask for a sliver of my time that I have that's not taking care of my family and myself, what do you want me to do? And I swear to God on a stack of Bibles and here in front of the God and everybody that I will be there. But it's got to be measurable and it's got to be clear. You can't just tell me not to be racist.
Wow. Okay.
Barbara, let me just say one thing.
Okay.
Jason, you're already doing what you're asking for. You're already doing. I'm just telling you personal testimony. It's about talking, because when I read your post, and I told you, when I read your post, I told Barbara, I was like, who is this guy? Because what I was getting from your post was just that it wasn't wrong. It was just kind of like pie in the sky. But now, just within the hour, just in the short amount of time, think about it. You've gone through a lot. First of all, thank you for saving little girls out there. Already you've gone from who is this guy to, oh, I would love to sit here and have a conversation. But that's what it is. It's a conversation. So within 1 hour, the 6 of us have come together and learned about each other's stories. So now you're no longer Jason, who is this guy, to like, you know what? Jason was really cool. So I want to tell you to your face, you have already done the work that I, as an African-American, need you to do, because now I understand your story. And thank you for the work. We're all learning. Thank you for the work that you're currently doing. I was homeless for a year in the city of Chicago, living in dumpsters, garbage cans. So I thank you for the work you're doing, because there's still a lot more people like me out there. So the work you've done, you've gone from, you're a hero for me. Thank you. Appreciate it. So you're
a
already
hero for me. I mean, doing the work that you do and adding the value that you do, you're a hero of mine too. So
thank you. Thank you. I still like Skip's cabin though. Just want to let you know.
Hey, I got a cabin.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And I promise you, I got more machine guns than he does.
All right, cool. I don't want to mess up my invitation with Skip though. That's all.
I want to go to Skip's house too. Skip's an amazing human. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Before I want to close out here. Just give me a few, because I know we went way over the time, but I believe that it was worth it, because you see these wonderful, awesome, magnificent men that were on this panel that gave a lot of good viewpoints and gave some things to think about. So Barry's always talking about stories. So I have to do this because I want people to understand this is a story about standing on your truth. When I was 7 years old, this is the first time my mother and dad was looking to buy a home. Okay. So at that point in time, they found the house. They had to go to the bank to get it financed. So it was me and my dad went to the bank. 7 years old. He's like, okay, we can get your first house, Barbara. You're gonna be so happy. You get a back, get to play in the backyard, all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's 7 years old. That's all you're thinking about is yay. So I get to the bank, and the security guard stopped us. I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, we got to the bank. Wait, why are they stopping us? So the security guard looks at me and says, where's your mother and dad, Barbara? I'm like, well, my dad's standing right here. What are you talking about? Well, that's not your dad, because he's white. And then she looked at my dad and said, he looked at him, he said, what are you talking about? He said, well, I thought that, I didn't know if that was your daughter or not. Sorry about that. And then he said, okay. So we kind of moved towards to the bank teller, the loan officer, I mean. So he sat down, and loan officer said, okay, what can I do you for? Well, I'm here to get a loan, to get a finance for my house for my daughter. He pointed at me and her, basically my wife, my mother. So the loan officer looks at him, looks at me, looks at him, and he says, you know what? We won't be able to do a loan for you right now. And he said, why not? He said, well, we had to look at your background and what you're going on and everything, and I don't think we can do a loan for you right now. So he said, well, I don't understand. I have everything, all the credentials and stuff. He said, we can't do a loan for you right now. So we walked out that bank. He said, you know what? You can keep it, and you keep everything you're talking about. We walked out the bank. We went out the door. We were outside. I looked at him and I said, Dad, are we still gonna get that house? And he said, I'm gonna make sure you get a house. And I'm gonna make sure that everybody understands that you're my daughter. And I don't care who says what, I'm gonna stand until I get that house for you. Well, after 2 or 3 banks passed up, we finally got financed in the house we got. I said this story, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit emotional here, because my dad was my rock. I looked at him as my rock, didn't look at anything else. He was my rock, and he stood because he loved everybody. He was just that type of person. And for him to sit there and had to walk out of 3 or 4 banks just to make sure his daughter had the house that he promised her. And he didn't look at the fact he was standing. So I'm saying this because we have to stand right now on our truths. We have to stand for what we believe in. And my father, if a lot of people know my story, he was murdered when I was 17 years old. So when that happened, I felt like my life crushed. And everything I said to myself, the one thing I took from that whole thing is I said, before I think about killing myself, because at that time I was thinking about it, I said, I got to stand because my dad stood for me. So we're talking about color and racism and all this stuff. I was a black child. He was a white man. The only thing that was there between both of us was fully love. And that's why if I have to do this panel, if I got to keep going out here talking to people, I'll do it. I don't care. I don't care. The biggest thing right now is we need to understand that this stuff has to stop, period. 2020, and we're still having conversations about this crap. I'm just putting it out there. So with that said, please understand people's story and understand that stand for what your truth is, because it's so much needed right now. With that, Martin, did you want to say so? I see. Okay. With that, I just want to close out by saying I have the 4th session coming up in a few more days. And I'm going to have another mixture of people. It's going to be women and men this time. But I'm doing this because I want everybody to hear the viewpoints of every scenario right now, because I think that that's what's needed. Like Jason said, we have to have these platforms. We have to talk. And then we have to put some action to it. So with that said, I want to sign off. Thank you, each and every one of you. I mean, you all just are just, when I called on you, you was there for me, and I totally appreciate it.
You can't stop now, because this is the first. You told me this was the. You told us this was the first annual bald head committee.
Yeah.
That's what you told us. You said all of us bald head together. You can't stop now.
Well, some people not bald headed.
Harlan's in denial. Harlan's in denial.
He's in training. He's in training. It's okay. You give him time. That's okay.
With that note, looks like I got to do the bald headed thing.
We owe you big hugs, Barbara. We owe you big hugs.
Yeah.
Thank
Love
you guys. Everybody.
you.
It's been a pleasure.
Everybody.
Very nice meeting you guys.
Awesome.